Sometimes we get the relationship, we get that blessing from the mother. And many other times we don't. But there's many other doors to receive the blessing of the mother. When I enter the field of value and I realize the inherent value of cosmos enveloping me, embracing me, I experience the mother. When I enter into the field of desire and I have this deep need to be touched and I'm held in touch, and it doesn't need to be sexual touch, it can be and it cannot be. The sexual only models the erotic. Like we always say, there's 12 billion years of Eros before sex. Sex is a gorgeous model of the erotic. But actually there's a healing Eros that moves through everything. That's the mother. That is the inherent structure and value of all. It's all the mother. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. We're all in different parts of the world now. And some of us are still in Holland. I'm still in Holland. We're finishing a week of just a fabulously beautiful week of, kind of team meetings and study and individual kind of deep dives of study and groups, and just a really, really stunning week. So next week we'll be back in the States for One Mountain. And I'm just filled with the trembling joy of being together. I'm filled with the trembling joy of being together, and I'm really, really excited to be with you all on Mother's Day. And I want to talk about that, but before then, and I know that Christina Amelon, among her many other great apparitions, right, in the world, is wearing the great garland of reviews. And so I want to just say a word about that for a second. By reviews, I mean reviews on books. And Jane is joining Christina and is taking on the great garland of Amazonian warrior. And I want to just say a word about that for a second and then go to the next step. But it's a really important and exciting word. So one of the things we're trying to do here on One Mountain, Many Paths, who we must become in this activist think tank, is to become ontological activists for the sake of the whole. I've got my glasses off, so okay, fantastic. That is to become ontological activists for the sake of the whole. And in this sense of becoming, ontological activists for the sake of the whole, we have this sense that we can actually impact the whole in some significant way. And in this moment of metacrisis, right, in this time between worlds, and in this time between stories, right, we actually experience ourselves as being able to close the gap between our ability to feel the pain of the world and our ability to heal the pain of the world, right? When we actually feel deeply and we feel the crisis and we feel the pain, we close down because we don't know how to heal it. We don't know how to transform it. We don't know how to turn pain into promise and peril into potentiated possibility, right? And poignancy, which devastates us in its unbearable intimacy with suffering worldwide, into the power to emerge with the evolutionary impulse alive in us as the new human and the new human, to actually make the crossing, to cross over from Homo sapien to Homo amor. The fulfillment of Homo sapien is Homo amor. The fulfillment of the old human, who identified themselves either as part of the one religion, which was the right religion, in which everyone else was excluded, whose role was to be obedient to God, who essentially emasculated the human because only God knew truth and only God knew depth and only God knew goodness and only God knew beauty. And God was somehow outside of the world, and we were the puny subjects in the world. And Spinoza, in his Tractatus 5, his analysis of religion, unpacks some of this. And then we went into modernity, where we kept God at the banquet, but sidelined God. God became a kind of figurehead, if you will. And we stepped into the center, and we assumed that we were in a world of some meaning and some value, but we didn't really know how to locate its source. We didn't know how to understand it, but we just assumed it, right? Until it all actually broke apart when postmodernity came and called in the loan of meaning, the loan of value, which we had borrowed from premodernity, and told us the emperor has no clothes, and we're living in a world that is valueless and meaningless, and that actually the world is ultimately pointless, and that love and eros and value are all social constructs. And all of that led towards this place of creating a false story, right? A pseudo-erotic story of rivalrous conflict governed by win-lose metrics that generates complicated, fragile systems. And the meta crisis was upon us. So we're responding to that. We're creating a new world, right? We're invoking, right, a new possibility. We're invoking a new story of value. That's what we're doing here together, right? Is that right? That's who we must become. We must become the new story of value. We must become not the old human. So the old human was either the pre-modern human, one version of the old human, emasculated human, obedient to God, who's not of this world, who's the only source of truth. That's one version of the old human. That's the pre-modern old human. Then there's the modern old human, right? We are at the center. We are Prometheus unbound, right? We have access to science. There's unlimited progress. Pretty soon, at the end of the 19th century, scientists wrote, pretty soon we'll have it all figured out. And we're going to usher in this new possibility, this new world, this new utopia. But we untethered from the field of value. We dissociated from the inherent meanings of cosmos and thought we could just make them up and that would be enough. That was a second version. Does everyone get that? That was a second version of the old human. Then the third version of the old human, right? Isn't it clear? Is it clear now, everyone? The third version of the old human is the postmodern old human, right? Meaning there is no story. Story's not real. Value is not real. There's no story of value, right? The postmodern human, right, says that Shakespeare was right in the fourth or fifth act of Macbeth, right? When he put into the mouth of Macbeth after his wife, the villain of the story, dies, but yet that villain of the story was his wife that he loved. And when she dies, right, he screams out, it's a tale or a story told by an idiot full of sounds and furies signifying nothing. There's no story of value. And all of the 20th century is various versions of this. Existentialism is a version of this. Sartre's No Exit is a version of this. Camus' The Stranger is a version of this, right? And then postmodernism is but another version of this old human. And this old human says there's no meaning. We're making it up. It's an acknowledgement, right, that the modern attempt to borrow social capital from pre-modernity, that loan, that hidden loan is called, and then no one can figure out what to do in value theory, right? Value theory collapses. Value is assumed to be not real. So now as we move from Homo sapien to Homo amor, we reclaim value, but not by going pre-modern. Not pre-modern. Does everyone get that? Not pre-modern. We're not going back to a regressive value structure of pre-modernity. We're not just assuming value like modernity did, but without actually showing it, experiencing it, holding it, explicating it. Right? That's modernity's move, like the American Constitution. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Wow, these truths to be self-evident, the most important truths in the world. Why don't you tell us how you know them? We skip that over. Right? We ignore that, right? We implicitly think we can claim them as these kind of common sense sacred axioms of value and not source them, even though value theory is collapsed. And then post-modernity, the explicit collapse of meaning, And yet we're going to heroically try and make meaning up. But of course, that doesn't work well. It doesn't work well at all. And in the emptiness at the center cannot hold, because at the center you need Eros. An inherent value is Eros. The experience of inherent goodness, inherent value is Eros. When there's no Eros value, inherent value is Eros, and Eros is the inherent value of cosmos. Does that make sense, those two sentences? So when that's not in the center, there's an emptiness, there's an unbearable screaming emptiness, right? Munch's painting, M-U-N-C-H. His painting is a silent scream. It's the scream of emptiness. And in that emptiness, in that void, which we try so hard to dance around, and we call it a void dance, right? In that void, we fill it up with pseudo stories. So the success story, which runs on rivalrous conflict governed by win-lose metrics. The success story is a cover-up story. That makes sense? So the success story, and then since the success story doesn't work by itself, we have another SOP, another booby prize, another door prize, another, kind of soothing mechanism. We give people a romantic story of ordinary love, separate selves fall in love. And we tell this ordinary love story, and we feel like, we can kill all the gods except for Aphrodite. And we'll make Aphrodite, even though we don't really believe she's a goddess anymore, we'll give her as a kind of booby prize. Does everyone ever know what I mean by booby prize? If you're not an English speaker, let me just check the chat box. You know what I mean by booby prize? We make this romantic story, the kind of the salve, the little candy that can make us feel good. Right? And we tell this myth of soulmates who look everlastingly into each other's eyes, dissociated from a larger field of value, as if that will placate us, like the soma in Aldous Huxley's novel Brave New World. Right? Does everyone get that? So that's all. These are old versions of the human. Those are Homo sapien versions of the old human. Right? And it's the first time we've actually, in One Mountain, tried to name. Right? Okay, there's a pre-modern version of the old human, and there's a modern version of the old human, and there's a postmodern version of the old human. So now we move to Homo amor. Now we have to reclaim values. We have to revision value theory, which we're doing. We have to understand Eros as the core value of cosmos. We have to show why that's true in terms of not just the interior sciences, but the exterior sciences. We revision sexuality. We revision the act of the artist. We re-understand, right, music. We re-understand the relationship between mathematical value and moral value, right? We re-envision politics, right? Commerce and economics completely has to change in its nature. We literally evolve the very source code of culture and consciousness, which is the evolution of love, which is the evolution of Eros, which is the progressive deepening of intimacies. When we say the progressive deepening of intimacies, we mean intimacies between people, intimacies between humans and animals, intimacy between ideas, intimacy between, right, geographic regions, right? Intimacy is very deep. Intimacy means we move from the optical delusion of consciousness, right, into larger unions, larger wholes, which create new value. That's what intimacy means. So the progressive deepening of intimacies brings together all the facts of reality into a new whole, which is a new story of value, right? So a new story of value is a new intimacy, and Homo amor is an expression, a personal expression of this new story of value. Is that good, everyone? Are we okay? I mean, it's beautiful, right? So if the new story of value is the realization of what we call evolution, the love story of the universe, maybe we can catch that in the chat box, evolution, the love story of the universe, we get that? Right? If the new story of value is evolution, the love story of the universe, or the new story of value is, we've got lots of names for it, is the universe, a love story. Let's get a bunch of them down. The universe, a love story. Second possibility. Stay with me. Anyone's with me in the chat box. 3, Or the new story of value is, we'll call it the intimate universe, Or the new story of value is cosmoerotic universe, right? Or the new story of value is the amorous cosmos, right? The amorous cosmos, right? All of which are ways of describing this reality, right? Which we live in. And this new story of value we're calling cosmoerotic humanism. Good? Good. That's what we're doing. That's where we're going. Let's take a couple of steps here, okay? So we're just saying hi. We're on Mother's Day and we're going to talk about the mother, okay? We're saying hi and let's just take a couple of steps here, okay? Let's take a couple of steps. But let's hold for a second. Let's breathe. I'm like insanely and madly and crazy delighted to be with y'all and just thank you. And I'm going to take 3 actually huge new leaps today, right? Because what we do here in One Mountain, Many Paths and who we must become, what are we doing here? What's this about? What are we doing? We're actually articulating the new story of value. Does that make sense? We're telling the new story of value, right? We're living the new story. And every week what we're doing is, as ontological activists, ontology means for real, right? We're tinkering not on the desktop. We're not a new age program or a fundamentalist program or a training program tinkering on the desktop or a therapeutic program, as important as those are. And those are individual changes and beautiful and like deep blessings to that work. But we're the source code people. We're the Da Vinci group, right? Who are at the Florentine Platonic Academy in the Renaissance and that time between worlds, right? We're in the source code itself. And we come together as a revolutionary act. We're not the first order and the second series of Star Wars movies, the third series. We're not the Sith. We're not Empire. We're the Rebel Alliance. And as we're trying to actually score a direct hit on the Death Star and to take down a culture of death, which generates existential risk, which is the potential death of the human being, or the death of humanity itself, or the death of our humanity. Okay. And I want to talk about that today. And I want to talk about it in terms of Mother's Day. I'm going to try and talk about it in a couple of new ways with your permission. Okay. Okay. We good? We alive? We awake? Hello. How's everyone doing? What's our intention? Our intention is, so I'm going to ask you a question with your permission. Are we ready to play a larger game? That's the question we ask ourselves here every week. And we do it as ritual. We don't do it as information. We do it as invocation. Are we ready to play a larger game? Are we ready to participate in the evolution of love? Are we ready to participate in the evolution of love? And I'm going to try and get to 3 new components. Okay. But first, I just want to do two thank yous. And they're in some sense random thank yous, right? Meaning there's so many people to thank about so many things, right? But I just want to, and every week I'll just pick out a person or 2 people, right, to thank. So in this moment, I want to thank 2 people. So first, I just want to thank Kirsten Zohar, right? And Kirsten has been both a close student by my side, right? An evolutionary partner, beloved, holding so many dimensions in so many ways. And we've gone on such a ride. And we're now together, literally, we're in the thickness of the deepest work of certain dimensions at the center. And Zohar, the name Kirsten Zohar, she has Kirsten Zohar Tutchik. I won't go through all of her names, but the word Zohar means radiance, and I saw Kirsten Zohar at the mystery school and I just looked over and just saw radiance. So I'm just so delighted, excited, and honored, right, to walk with you, Zohar, and just like insanely gorgeous to be here with you. So just like, thank you. There's much more to say, but Kirsten is a deep lineage holder. And together with Kathy and Claire, right, of course, holding a particular piece of the lineage, Shahati, right, obviously Zach Stein, Christina Kincaid, right, Aubrey Marcus. There's an incredible group of just very powerful and beautiful lineage holders, but Kirsten's holding a particular quality of the lineage in such a gorgeous way. And we're crazy honored to be with you. So that's one of 2. And I just want to thank a second person who is often behind the scenes and weaving things together in different ways that are 1,000 points of light that are so essential, without which none of us would exist. She is Vishnu incarnate and kind of weaving together. And that is Suzette, who is my chief of staff who's holding so many pieces in so many ways. And Suzette and I are working and we're up leveling and we're deepening all the time in a constant process. And like all of us are in Kirsten's debt, all of us are in Suzette's debt. And so I want to say just both particularly to Suzette and to Kirsten, happy Mother's Day. And Mother's Day is not about, right, Kirsten, with your permission, Kirsten doesn't have children in this lifetime. Suzette does have children in this lifetime. And of course, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, and like blessings to everything and all of, but a particular Mother's Day at this moment, right, to Suzette and to Kirsten, who are accessing the quality of the Divine Mother, right, and holding us in very different ways and very important ways. So I just wanted just to model, to pick out if we can, Suzette, and there's many other people to mention. Now, people are texting me and telling me to mention 10 other people, right? So I'm not going to mention 10 other people, right? Because I'm going to stay with these two, and I know they're very important, right? Mothers, right? And there's mothers with us who I'm insanely close to who have lost a child, who I've talked about before in depth, right? But actually, they remain mothers, not only of the child that's here, but they're mothers of all. But I want to stay on those two now. And so thank you. So our gang is so sweet and so good that everyone's afraid of someone being left out. This is not a list. It's two people. Just right. Yay. Okay. So I saw that Kirsten Zohar got all those blessings, right? Suzette, there she is on her iPhone. Okay. Yay. Yay. It's all personal, my friends. Is that right? It's all personal. It's all personal. Everyone tells you it's not personal. It is. It's all personal, the whole thing. Okay. Okay. What we're going to do is like this. I want to watch, if we can, we're going to watch a chant by Sinead O'Connor. Are we ready, Krista? Sinead O'Connor, right, who writes, "This is to mother you." And Sinead O'Connor was betrayed by the mother. And in this case, it was the Mother Church. It was the Mother Church of Ireland, which, although it did a lot of good and a lot of beauty, it also was brutal and oppressive and abusive in fundamental ways. And there's a reason why Sinead O'Connor ripped up the Pope's picture in a controversial and non-career building moment, obviously. And Sinead struggled her entire life with daemon and demon. And at some point, there was a moment, though, where she was able just to locate herself with the mother. And so I want to just feel it. If we have the words, we can find the words. Let's see if we can find them. If we have them, fantastic. So this is our prayer. This is our prayer. And I want to just, with permission, tenderly, everyone, we're gonna just, as we listen, let's just offer up our prayers to the mother. And the mother is not mom. The mother's the mother. And we'll talk more about the mother, but the mother is the quality of Eros life force that holds us in every second, that is personal, that knows our name, and yet suffuses all. It's the place that we know that every place we fall into her hands. So we'll have just a moment of prayer, and then let's just dive for just 20 minutes, like deep, and see if we can actually, as ontological activists, for the sake of the whole, partner with the mother, make the mother proud, and actually take another step in the revolution and clarify 2 or 3 key pieces of the story of value that we desperately need in order to respond to the meta crisis. So here she is coming at you, the mother. Ah, the mother, the mother, the mother. Yeah. Who could feel that? Who could feel the mother? Who could feel the mother? The mother has many disguises, has many veils. One of them is art. One of them, we'll talk about the veils of the mother. But in this particular video that Sinead made, it was a certain kind of sexing. It was not about sexuality. It was about healing. I call it mother sexing or healing sexing. And it appears in the Unique Self book in chapter 20, but there's an entire phenomenology of Eros that, together with Dr. Christina Kincaid and Aubrey Marcus, we've articulated. But Kiki and I have been kind of deep in this story, right? Obs has joined us. The first time I started thinking about this was like 2008 or 9. Right? That sexing doesn't have one name. Sexing has many names. There's many different qualities of sexing. There's actually about 7 major tastes or qualities or distinctions of desire And one of them is healing sexing. So this was healing sexing. This was mother sexing. This was desire, which was not about pleasure, and it wasn't about vitality, and it wasn't about mystical, right, sexing, and it wasn't about personality sexing where we're trying to cover up the void or to turn our pain into art. But again, it wasn't the vital sexing of the evolutionary Eros, right? It wasn't any of those things. It was mother sexing. It was healing sexing. And it was about being held in the arms of the mother and knowing I can fall into her arms. And we do healing sexing with each other, sometimes as beloveds, and sometimes in the realm of the sexual, which was the image in that video. But actually, healing Eros, we do with each other all the time when we fall into each other's arms. We know that's possible. So let's add two pieces today. So one is the mother. Happy Mother's Day, everyone. Happy Mother's Day. And the mother, of course, is the feminine mother. And the feminine mother is unimaginably important. But the feminine mother stands for a quality of cosmos. Now, can a man be the feminine mother? Of course, obviously. Is the feminine body uniquely designed to mother? Obviously. And obviously, yoni, breasts, have a unique quality of mothering. But obviously, mother is not gender limited. There's a broader sense of mother in the great lineages and the interior sciences. That's not a postmodern idea, right? The notion of mother is much larger than my individual mother, but it's not smaller. Does that make sense? So if I didn't get, Sinead O'Connor did not get mothering from her mother. Her mother actually stood by when she was abused, actually perhaps participated in the abuse. Sinead O'Connor's mother was probably the most brutal figure in her life. I said, if you read her history and what she's written about it, and there's an important documentary about her, we understand that. And yet Sinead reaches for the mother. And she needs to reach for the mother because she actually couldn't access it directly from her mother. And then she realizes, and if we can put the words in the chat box again, she has this realization that actually, and I just track this with me, this is to mother you, to comfort you, and to get you through when your nights are lonely, through when your dreams are only blue. This is to mother you. That's the quality of mother, to hold you and kiss you too. For when you need me, I will do what your own mother didn't do. That's she. That's the goddess. That's the mother. When you need me, I respond to need. Mother responds to need. When you need me, I will do what your own mother didn't do. And all the pain that you have known, and all the violence in your soul, and all the wrong things that you've done, I'll take them from you when I come. All the mistakes, right, made in distress, right? All the ways that you weren't able to show up, all of your unhappiness, I will take away with my kiss. Yes, I will give you tenderness. For a child, the mother says, we are so glad we found you. And actually, our arms have always been around you. Sweet bird, although you did not see us, we see you. And we're here to mother you. She doesn't leave. She doesn't leave. Mother never leaves. Mother never abandons us. And we are mother. We are each of us mother. And so I want to find that. I want to feel that with you. This quality, right, of mother. This quality of mother. So what is mother incarnating? What is she holding? What is she holding? She's holding the experience that I'm never alone. You are not alone. She's always holding me. We said earlier, wherever I fall into her hands. And she gives me the experience. We've talked about this before. Let's return to it ever more deeply. She gives me the experience that I am welcome in the universe, right? What I get from the mother is the experience that I am welcome in the universe. Does that make sense? And actually, the realization of the centrality of the mother in the biological mother, and right, in the family and the caretaker and the father who's playing the role of the mother at times. Right? The mother is both the mother and wider than mother, right? The parent, the caretaker, the teacher. The realization of the mother is critical. And there's a particular role for the mother and father in early nascent childhood. And all of contemporary attachment theory, right? And probably everyone here has got some sense of attachment theory. Let's put it in the chat box, attachment theory, right? Which has a long history, but comes to a new crystallization in the work of Bowlby, B-O-W-L-B-Y, Bowlby. He writes 3 monumental books called Separation and Loss. And then Mary Ainsworth continues his work, and there's a whole school, and Kohut and Harry Stack Sullivan and Winnicott, and there's an entire world of attachment theory. And attachment theory is about how the nature of my early experience with the mother, with us, the nature of my early experience with the mother defines everything. My whole life, right? Shifts, changes, alters, reconfigures, right? Based on my experience with the mother, because my experience with the mother is an experience with reality, with the universe, because my mother is the whole story. My mother is my story. And before I achieve separation individuation, Margaret Maller's phrase, before I individuate, the mother is the universe. So if I am able to establish, right, a depth of allurement and love and attunement with my mother, then I experience the universe in her true nature as the universe, a love story, right? The series of words we used earlier, as the cosmorotic universe, as the amorous cosmos, as the intimate universe. I experience evolution as the love story of the universe. But if my mother is somehow dissociated or not attuned or troubled or filled with anxiety or depressed or somehow not present in some fundamental way, then I feel somehow like I'm in a universe in which I'm not being held. I'm not welcome in the universe. Mother is the first and great welcome sign of the universe. Does that make sense? Mother is the first and great welcome sign of the universe. It's deep. But mother can't be limited to my mother. Can we stay close? And it's like, it's so, let's see if we can walk a couple of steps. Okay. So the first figure, let's say, that entered into popular culture, not the first, but let's say a major figure in popular culture who understands that the fall, not the move from Homo sapien to Homo amor, but the opposite move, the move towards anti-value, the move towards collapse, the move towards depression, the move towards breakdown, the move towards evil, is the incapacity to find the mother. Sometimes a sense of being unable to hold the mother or seeing the mother's intense suffering. But there's something when I'm rend asunder from the mother, I collapse. And that is the story in Star Wars, right? The most oft seen story, the most well-known shared public narrative of the 20th and 21st century and many major movies to come. It's just getting started. So the central early figure is Anakin Skywalker. And there's in the first Star Wars 1, 2, and 3, not 4, 5, and 6, which are the first ones that were released, but 1, 2, and 3, there's an epic scene when Qui-Gon Jinn, who is a student of Count Dooku, actually in the Star Wars lineage. Those of you who are familiar with Star Wars, if you're not, you can skip that, right? So Qui-Gon Jinn finds Anakin. He realizes he has, who's following me here? Star Wars geeks, right? He has more midichlorian, which means more Eros value, more something, more power than even Yoda. And he thinks that Anakin is the fulfiller of the prophecy, right? He's right. And he takes Anakin. Thanks, Eli. I appreciate that. Thanks. So he takes Anakin to bring him to be trained in the Jedi world. We good? To be trained in the Jedi world. And he only has enough money to liberate Anakin and not his mother. And the Jedi didn't understand the mother. They got the Force, but they didn't understand the personal quality of the mother. It's one of the great weaknesses of the Jedi. Different conversation. And there's this moment where Qui-Gon Jinn tells Anakin that he won't be able to liberate his mother, take his mother with him. And he says, you have to decide whether you want to go, which is, of course, an impossible choice to give to Anakin. And of course, he's desperate to go and to be trained and get off the planet. And he goes with Qui-Gon Jinn, and then he turns around and he sees his mother. And he runs back to his mother and says, I don't want to go. He doesn't know what to do. And his mother hugs him, and he says, will I ever see you again? It's this incredible, painful moment. Anakin never sees his mother again to the last moments of his mother's life. He has dreams that his mother is being tortured and hurt, but he has particular Jedi orders, right? You don't follow dreams. You fulfill your noble role as your mission, right? As a Jedi Knight. And in the end, he violates those orders because he just feels the nightmares that his mother is suffering. She's actually been taken by these sand people, and she's been ravaged, and she's barely alive. And he comes too late to save her, and she dies in his arms. And as the mother dies in his arms, it's the beginning of his descent into becoming Darth Vader, and his lightsaber unsheathes, and it becomes a weapon of violent and horrific destruction for the first time. And in the shame of that act, he opens the doors to becoming Darth Vader. Huh. Did everyone get that? Like, huh. Like, wow. Like, wow. And then he tries to find the mother again. Does everyone get this? He tries to find the mother again. He's looking for the mother. He tries to find the mother again. In who and how? In Padme. And his beloved, his romantic beloved. But of course, the Jedi Order they don't understand. Right? They don't understand Eros. Right? The Jedi Order is all about agape. They're all about, right? The Force is all about ethics and being attuned to the Force, but the Force is very impersonal for the Jedi. They get goodness and they get the Force, but it's agape. There's no Eros. And so Jedi Knights don't marry. And Anakin has now fallen in love with Padme, this senator, this figure. But he tries to bring that love, right, to Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan can't even hear it, right? He can't even get the conversation started. But then he goes to Yoda, his other potential teacher, and tries to share with Yoda, right, the interior of the searing Eros moving through him, but he can't get the words out. And Yoda says attachment leads to the dark side, right? Attachment leads to the dark side, right? Yoda should have studied attachment theory a little bit better. It was one of Yoda's worst moments, one of the great failures of teaching, in the relationship between the master and the Padawan, which is a sacred relationship. When the master always wants the Padawan to emerge with unimaginable radiance as their own master, but the master has to be listening to the Padawan, just like the Padawan has to be listening to the master. It's a mutual relationship. And Yoda can't hear. He can't hear Anakin. And so Anakin can't even express, right, that he's found this new relationship to the field of the feminine. And of course, then in enters Palpatine, the Sith Lord, that's right in front of everyone that no one can even see. They're looking for the Sith Lord, the Jedi, all over the galaxy, but he's actually talking to them every day. They're blinded because they're rooted in the field of the Force, which they understand as agape, but they're cut off from the feeling tone of Eros. So they can't actually see clearly. So they don't understand that the force of evil, Palpatine, is actually right in front of them. And Palpatine, of course, seduces Anakin, right, to the dark side through promising him, right, that he will save Padme, meaning he will restore or hold or protect his link to the divine feminine, his link to the mother. Padme's become the mother. So who got that? It's like, this major, fundamental, right, essential, right, cultural story at the very, very, very center, right, of public culture world over. Step two. Ready? Step two. We have a drum roll. Step two. Let's go. Step two. Step two. Here we go. Step two. So let's now move from Star Wars, right? And let's move to Camus' book, The Stranger, right? And we talked about existentialism earlier as a postmodern expression of the old human before Homo Amor, right? A postmodern expression, a third expression of Homo sapien, the old human. And at the very center of existentialism is the death of the mother. But the mother, and existentialism got this right. They never said it out loud. It's implicit. but it's brilliant, but they took the wrong side of it. So existentialism understands the following, although it never says it. The mother is value. The mother is the field of value, valentius, love. The mother is, right, the VAL root that we've talked about many times together. Right? The mother is value. The mother is the field of value. Existentialism, that's what Freud does in Being and Nothingness, right? In Being and Nothingness, not in No Exit, I said No Exit before. In Being and Nothingness, he completely deconstructs the field of value. There is no field of value. It does not exist. Everything's made up. And he does this incredibly incisive and beautiful, right, job in deconstructing the field of value. And of course, if you read him carefully in a way that he can't even read himself, underneath his deconstruction of the field of value is value itself. But let's leave that aside. Sartre can't get there. And Sartre is correctly cited from Being and Nothingness, right, as the ultimate expression of there's no field of value, right? So the mother is the field of value. So Sartre's friend Camus opens, or Camus, or however you want to pronounce that, Albert opens his book, The Stranger, with a line like, mother died today, or was it yesterday? Right? Mother died today, or was it yesterday? And his point is, it doesn't matter, because mother is only the mother if she's an expression of an inherent field of value. Mother incarnates value. When I'm held by the mother, I'm held in the arms of value. It matters. Mother gives me the experience that my matter matters, that my life matters, right? That actually I don't need to search for a life that matters because I'm already there. I can let go of purpose because it's all purpose. And there's nothing that doesn't matter. It's not the father who's on a quest. It's not the knight who's on a quest for the blessing of the father for that which matters. When I'm in the arms of the mother, all matter matters. That's what the arms of the mother means. I'm in the field of value. So mother is the instantiation, the incarnation of the logos, the word of meaning itself, right? In that old, when Netflix first started doing series, so it wasn't on Netflix, it was actually on classical television where they did The Sopranos. Who remembers The Sopranos from 20 years ago, whenever it was The Sopranos, this particular mafia boss, I think it was Tony Soprano. So Tony Soprano is willing to kill people, murder them brutally, put them in cement blocks as the mafia archetype is supposed to do. Tony Soprano, anybody got Tony Soprano here? Right? Anybody got Tony Soprano? HBO, thank you, Daniel. Who's got Tony Soprano with me here, okay? So Tony Soprano, even though he commits every heinous deed, any Tony Soprano people, hello, let's give it up for Tony. Right, let's give it up for Tony here. Okay, thank you. But who does Tony Soprano retain this relationship of intense devotion and honor for? His mother. Everyone remember that? And as everything is gone, everything's been destroyed, what remains is his mother. So that's why she's the remaining instantiation of the field of value, the mother. Right? Like, So mother is the field of value. So what existentialism is correctly saying, that if there's no field of value, then there's no mother. Then mother is just a biological coincidence in a pointless and meaningless universe. Mother died today, or was it yesterday? And who cares? And who cares, meaning it doesn't ultimately matter. Right? The veneration of the mother disappears. The intrinsic quality of the mother disappears. Even that relationship of the mother and the child is no longer sacred because there is no sacred. Wow. So if there's no field of value, there's no mother. So Camus opens The Stranger, mother died today. Or was it yesterday? Okay, one last step. And it gets intensely beautiful. So the entire Solomon lineage, the whole thing, which is Solomon, the ancient king in Jerusalem, right, who is a forerunner of the Renaissance and a forerunner of later cosmologic humanism, this new story of value. He's an early adopter of Homo Amor. So Solomon, and all of us here, is there anyone here who's never heard the word wisdom of Solomon? We've all heard Solomon. Why do we know Solomon's name? He's this ancient Near Eastern king in a little province, which is smaller than small. Why do we even know Solomon's name? Right? Who's heard before we met? Who's heard Solomon? Who's heard the name? Just check in. Why do we know his name? Who's heard Solomon's name? Who else? Who else has heard the wisdom of Solomon? Why? Who's heard the wisdom of Solomon? Why? Did the guy have a good person doing his kind of social media stuff? Was he branded? Who branded him? Who branded Solomon? Did you get that? Who branded Solomon? Who did that? Why do we know about him? Why is he in our space? We don't quite know what we know. We don't quite know what it's about. We don't quite know what it means, but we know there's this Solomon. Where'd Solomon come from? I spend many hours for a period of time, like 18, 19 hours a day, poring over the Aramaic Solomon lineage and trying to unmask it, and wrote a couple of volumes about Aramaic texts on the Solomon lineage, and it's called Radical Kabbalah. But Solomon's important. So Solomon is the son of David, King David. There's a new Netflix series on King David, I believe, and David. So this king in the ancient Near East, David, right, ruler of Jerusalem. And David is descended from Judah, 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 right, Judah. And Judah is in the lineage of Solomon and in the lineages of Christendom and the lineages of Islam and the lineages of Sufism. He finds his way to Kashmir Shaivism, right? In the East, he finds his way to Buddhism in other ways. But Judah incarnates what I would call utopian potential. And a world without utopia is not a world. A world without a potential utopia is not a world. And my friend James shared with me a quote that I can't remember right now from Oscar Wilde, right? Which is something about, right, if there's no utopia, there's no world. That's a bad rendition. But in other words, without utopia, without a vision of what's possible, without a sense of where the plot line wants to get, without a beginning omega point, without a directional signal, reality doesn't exist. Reality is a story. It's not really a fact. And the story has a plot line, and a plot line is called by the future. A plot line is not only moved by the past, the plot line is called by the future. It's going somewhere. It's yearning for something. A plot line of a story is animated by desire for more value. And we'll talk more about this in a different time. Elena, we're deep in the middle of this, right? So in this plot line of the story, in this world story, Judah represents the plot line. He represents what we might call messianic potential or utopian potential, or the possibility of creating the shining city on the hill, right? Or Shambhala, right? Or a world where there's enough for everyone, a world that works for everyone, right? Or the genuine potentiation of progress that can actually evolve reality, right? To a world in which everyone's included and no one's excluded, and which we actually turn swords into plowshares and we don't teach war anymore, right? A world of the most beautiful world, right? That we all know, the most good world, the most true world that we all already know is possible, that lives in us. That's Judah. Does everyone get that? That's Judah. You with me, everyone? That's Judah. That's Judah. Okay, that's Judah. Now, Judah is the son of Leah, Leah. Genesis chapter 29 in the sacred Genesis text of the canon. He's the son of Leah. We get this? He's the son of Leah. Leah, I'm not going to do the whole story, but just for one moment. Leah is married to Jacob. Complicated story we're not going to do now. Jacob didn't want to marry Leah. Jacob wanted to marry Rachel. Jacob is deceived by the father of Leah and Rachel, Laban. And after making a deal to work in exchange for bride, Laban, the father of the two daughters, brings not the younger daughter, Rachel, with whom Jacob is in love, but the older daughter, Leah, and replaces her heavily veiled under the marriage canopy. And Jacob awakens the next morning after the darkness abates and the dawn rises, and he sees it's Leah. It's not Rachel. And they never overcome, at least not easily, they never overcome that alienation, at least not for most of their lives. There's something that happens at the end we're not going to talk about now. And so Leah marries Jacob in the darkness. She betrays her sister. She obeys her father. She marries Jacob in the darkness. She wants to be Mrs. Jacob, and she can't find him. And so her first son she calls Reuben. And Reuben means, in the biblical text, right, in the Genesis text, Reuben means God saw Ra'adonai Atoni, God saw my affliction. Hoping that, wow, maybe this son will bring her closer, but he doesn't. Then she has a second son with Jacob, Simon. And the Genesis text explains the name Simon given by Leah, just like the name Reuben was given by Leah, explains the name Simon as Shema Adonai Kisnua Anochi. God heard that I was hated. And then she has a third son with Jacob, right? Because the second son also didn't overcome the chasm of loneliness and misrecognition and alienation. The third son is Levi, as in Levi's genes, Levi. And the Levi, again, this third name given by Leah, and the Genesis text explains the name as Hapam Yilave Ilai Ishi. Maybe this time my man, my husband, will take walks with me. She's desperate for Jacob, and she can't find Jacob. She can't find Jacob. And each one of those children goes through incredible pain and tragedy. Each one of those children acts out violently in one way or the other. Each one of those children has significant, major, tragic moral failures that, if you trace the plot line of the book of Genesis, are directly related to the following. When they were held in the arms of the mother, Reuben, Simon, Shimon, Levi, Levi, when they're held in the arms of the mother, and Leah looks down at them, Leah doesn't see them. Who does she see? Anybody? Who does she see? Leah doesn't see them. Who does she see? Jacob. They're instrumental to her overcoming her emptiness and finding Jacob. So they're never seen by the mother. Their attachment in contemporary terminology is violated in a fundamental way. And you have basically Genesis chapter 29 is actually the nascent and original source of attachment theory. And then Leah has a fourth child. The mother has a fourth child. And this child, when this child's born, she looks down at the child and she doesn't say anything about her alienation from Jacob. She doesn't say anything about yesterday's pain. She looked down at the child and she says, Hapam odeat Adonai. This time I embrace myself before the divine. I'm held by the divine. And as she experiences herself as being held by the divine mother, again, as she experiences herself as being held in the field of value, the field of the mother, the field of Eros value, the field of the infinite intimate, the field of the divine, she then looks down at her child and she calls him Judah. His name is Judah. And Judah is explained by the text this time, I'm embraced by the divine, which is why for the first time, the child, the baby, feels embraced by the mother. Judah feels the radical embrace and blessings of the mother. This is to mother you. And in that experience, right, of the embrace of the mother, Judah experiences the field of value. And Judah becomes the incarnation of that field of value and of the human potential, the potentiation, right, implicit in humanity to create heaven on earth, to create a new world, right, to move from Homo sapien to Homo amor, right, to fulfill the evolutionary potential, to build the shining city on the hill. He becomes messianic consciousness, right? He becomes the new human. He becomes the symbol of the new humanity. So Judah is the first version of Homo amor. Judah represents the possibility of possibility, the possibility of a better world, the possibility of Homo amor. Judah is the first new human, and Judah is Homo amor because Judah is held in the arms of the mother. Anakin, Camus' stranger, Judah, Homo amor. That's the mother. We hold each other. We make mistakes. Sometimes the mistakes are hard and damaging and costly, but we don't turn away from each other. We come closer. We fix them. We up-level. We transform. We go deeper. We don't shame each other. We're accountable. We're accountable because we count. We get deeper. We love each other more. It's always loving each other more. It's always loving it open more deeply. That's the mother. The mother is the knowing that I'm in the field of value. The mother is the knowing that it all matters and it's all possible, right? The mother looks down at her child and she sees a king. She sees a queen. She's a prince and a princess. That's the mother. And sometimes I get that relationship from my mother. I didn't. Lots of other people didn't. I got other beautiful things from my mother, but I didn't get that. Sometimes we get the relationship, we get that blessing from the mother. And many other times we don't. But there's many other doors to receive the blessing of the mother. When I enter the field of value and I realize the inherent value of cosmos enveloping me, embracing me, I experience the mother. When I enter into the field of desire and I have this deep need to be touched and I'm held in touch, and it doesn't need to be sexual touch. It can be and it cannot be. The sexual only models the erotic. Like we always say, there's 12 billion years of Eros before sex. Sex is a gorgeous model of the erotic. But actually, there's a healing Eros that moves through everything. That's the mother. That is the inherent structure and value of all. It's all the mother. When we separate from the mother, when Anakin separates from the mother, it's devastating. So attachment theory focuses on the separation from the biological mother. Environmental theory understands that the separation from Mother Earth is tragic. Existentialism feels there's no field of value and says, wow, if we separate from the field of value, which we have, then mother died today or was it yesterday? And it doesn't matter. Right? Totalitarian regimes turn the state into the mother, right? Fascism, right? Turns the state into the mother, right? The embrace of the chatbot in the digital immersive environment, right, turns the planetary stack of the digital into the mother that holds us. It's a false mother. She can't feel us, right? We need to actually reclaim the mother. Reclaim the mother in the processes of government. Reclaim the mother, right, in our relationship to Earth. Reclaim the mother in our relationship to technology, which is infused with the mother, with value. And we need to learn how to feel value and then and there are ways to do it to actually create a deep relationship and to infuse techne with the mother. But today, let's just start at the very beginning and we'll conclude with this beginning. First, we just have to recognize the field of value, which is the field of Eros, which is the field of Eros value. And there's no split between them. We've been saying the last year and a half. I used to think that, wow, Eros is the great value of cosmos. And value itself, value is filled with Eros. But I used them separately and I realized that was wrong. It's wrong. No, Eros value is one term. It's Eros value all the way up and all the way down. Eros value is the ground of being in which we fall. And Eros value is the pulse of becoming, which actually is the ecstatic urgency of cosmos, yearning, desiring with all of its being, ever deeper contact and ever greater wholeness, which then discloses ever and more and deeper value. The mother is not static. She's the dynamic feminine. And in Western thought, the mother or the feminine is somehow passive, only receiving. There's a receiving dimension to the mother. But the mother is actually not only passive, not only receiving. The mother is the dynamic feminine. She's the Shakti dancing. She's the dancing Shakti. And maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, a long time ago, I sent to a lot of people a book by Gareth Hill that replays the work of Eric Neumann, which is about the dynamic feminine, the Shakti dances. She creates, she's generative, she aggregates, she causes new unions, she creates new value. And that's a critical revisioning of the feminine. This notion of kind of this passive or just only receiving feminine is not true. That's a Western notion of the feminine. That's a dimension of the feminine, receives the penetration of the masculine. And then there's another dimension of the feminine that generates reality. She actually is the generative, aggregating, erotic force, generating new intimacies, the mother. The mother is not only the being in which we fall, but the becoming towards which we are moving, where we're going. She is the very alluring possibility to which we all move. And the mother lives in so many faces and so many disguises. So maybe we can find, as I pass to you, Krista, find this notion, that this realization, happy Mother's Day, that we have to mother each other. If we have biological children in this lifetime, if we have that blessing, which is a blessing and sometimes inordinately painful, it sometimes goes perfectly and sometimes is just unimaginably painful, not because we did something wrong, but because children enter the world with their own karma. But a child's not only formed by the mother, the child comes to the mother already with destinies and destinies from previous incarnations. But this may be an incarnation for children or not an incarnation for children. I may have completed my children karma, right? We don't know. But so blessings to biological children that I have 4, right? And all of them are intensely important to me in different relationships and different storylines, which are obviously not appropriate now. So blessings to biological children. And this may well not be an incarnation for you for biological children. So blessings for the children that you're creating, that we're creating together, because we're mothers together. And we have to mother each other. We have to hold each other. We have to literally embrace each other. We can't be just like in a relationship. We have to be, the mother is outrageous love. We have to love each other, but not ordinarily, madly. The actual field of Eros, the field of outrageous love, moves through us. We are outrageous lovers. And Happy Mother's Day can only end one way, right? With the basic statement of the mother. We live in a world of outrageous pain. The only response to outrageous pain is the mother, right? Is outrageous love. So mad thank you and Happy Mother's Day. Like all the way, Krista.
Thank you, Dr. Marc Gafni, for that beautiful, beautiful healing journey. So precious. And let's just take a moment to really feel this moment here together and breathe it in as we're feeling the invocation of this field of value in the space between us and the beautiful invitation to mother each other, to give each other the blessing of the mother. And that's also the invitation of us here as a community, as we are deepening our community, our practice, our study together. Last week, I spoke about how we're going to relaunch and launch in a big way our community platform. So many people have been holding One Mountain Many Paths for all these years. So we want to offer you a founders members discount. When the time is right, we're going to launch this community platform for $100 a month, but everyone here will get a discount and you can join for $50 a month as we are creating and building this beautiful community together all over the world. So it's a beautiful way to contribute and to participate. So I will put the link in the chat box as we are closing to dance together, so you can take a look at that afterwards. And we will be speaking about that a lot in the next weeks. Finally, I also want to remind us to write a review on Amazon, because this is the most important thing that we can do to show the world how important and amazing and heart-opening and transforming this work is. So the 2 new books that are online there are Homemade, The Relationship of the Future, and the other one is called Evolution of Love, From Quarks to Culture. Please do purchase the books on Amazon. You need to do that in order to be able to write a review. Make sure that your review shows up on Amazon.com. I know there's a lot of questions that we got about how this actually works, when it shows up on your local Amazon and when on your on the international. So please make sure that it shows up on the international. If you need any help with that, you're welcome to reach out to me, to Jamie, to Jane. We're all standing by to support you. So you can send an email to support@onemountainmanypaths.org, and we'll put the link in the chat box as well. But make sure that you write your reviews.